I am Groot. I mean, we are live. Welcome to my spoiler-free review of, yeah, I Am Groot, the 2022-2023 Disney Plus, MCU show. So this, yeah, for a while I was holding off on doing a spoiler-free review of this because I wasn't sure if they were going to do more, but it seems at this point like they're not. Certainly, yeah, they did 2 seasons, let's go with that, 2 years in a row, and now it's been like about 2 years since the last of those, so here we are. There will be no spoilers for the show itself in this video. I think I will spoil the MCU leading up to it. And that might basically be, I thought this was good to great. I think that the, it's the kind of thing of like, when you have this, like, sometimes, can be difficult to communicate with like, on some level they should be like an adult, but they keep, kind of acting like a child a little bit and causing some trouble that other people has to clean up for. But enough about Donald Trump. Seriously though, that does also apply to Baby Groot. And so throughout this, I'm going to be referring to these as the 2 seasons of I Am Groot and episodes. I am aware that technically that's not 100% what they are. They are a series of shorts that came out into batches, but that just feels, that's not how I'm gonna be referring to them as. But yeah, in a very real sense, this is very much like the MCU equivalent of those 2D animated shorts that Disney used to do, where we spend a few minutes with, for example, Donald Duck, and he has some sort of problem that he wants to solve, and or something he wants to accomplish. It's not necessarily a problem, just something needs dealing with, and that can wait. Yeah, and when you take this on those terms, yeah, it's great. It's mostly if you're trying to make it something that it's not. And I mean, ultimately, I do appreciate, I would not personally show very much MCU media to actual children, but this show, like, let's see, it's TV PG, the show itself. I would say this is probably primarily intended for parents to show their children who are too young to watch one of the movies or any of the other shows yet, but they're always asking for something new to watch, and you've already shown them everything else Disney, or all the original Disney before Disney became everything, or everything became Disney. But yeah, you show them this, and then once they get a little bit older, you start showing them the movies. It seems to me like that's the idea, because obviously your average MCU filmgoer is older than the target audience for this. And that is also, they created one of the cutest characters in all of fiction throughout human history. So obviously they had to make something that was for kids. And there are also a couple of things here where they put, in the movies they push the PG-13 rating. This show sometimes pushes the PG rating. If you are watching this and you are a parent, might I suggest watch the episodes before showing them to your kids. You don't have to show every episode to your kids if there's one or two that you think go too far, or don't go too far enough. But yeah, it is very much just capitalizing on the charm of the little fella, and you don't need to have watched anything else to follow this at all. You can genuinely just sit and watch this. Like, there's stuff that's you're not gonna fully understand if you haven't watched any of the others, but again, if you're showing this to your kid, if you've watched the Guardians movies, yeah, you're gonna be able to explain, oh yeah, that's this other thing, yeah. Basically, the episodes are self-contained. Each one has its own little story that, that this was one of the first times the MCU did something that really doesn't need that much canon. It's rare for the other shows to be this. Like, not all of What If, not all of that, not every single episode relates directly back to one of the other episodes, but they do, what's the word? Not all of them relate directly back to, but they do use the canon of and continuity of the movies, But with this one, it's just kind of the continued adventures of Baby Groot. Different, various planets. Sometimes he's on a ship, and yeah, it's very much kids stuff, and that I'm not saying that as like a negative. He wants to draw a drawing, or he discovers some cute animal, or there's just something that catches his eye, stuff like that. And yeah, there's not that much in the way of the other characters of the MCU popping up. A lot of the time on the show, if Groot is not the only life form that is, capable of affecting the surroundings, then the other ones are probably an alien that we haven't seen before. And yeah, I think that might just about cover. Yeah, it's fun. It's fairly insubstantial. It's very much something, if you don't watch it, you're gonna be fine. I mean, the MCU is not over, but I would be shocked if at some point there's something in one of the movies or shows that are like, where you need to know something that happened on this show. I do not foresee that happening in any corner of the multiverse. And, in part because each of these MCU properties tend to just explain enough that you understand. That's another thing about this one. It doesn't really sit you down and explain. Like, you either kind of just have to take it as it is, which, for a lot of kids, that is just life. You don't get everything explained. Or, yeah, you can, show it to your, parent or parents who watch the MCU, and they can try to explain. Yeah. But, yeah, I've, honestly, rating wise, I would have to say this is a good solid 7 I Am Groot 10.